Well, here we are on a Wednesday night, 31st of May. Another month comes to an end, and it has come to an end with mostly sunny weather today, and we'll see if we could stretch it out for a couple of more in the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states. We do have some rains in Florida. There's a low in the northeast Gulf of Mexico that we've got our eyes on, but I don't expect it to do very much. A little bit of severe weather tonight in the western plains. Otherwise, it looks like a late May map, and we will look at it closely tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Get your truck over to Omni and pick up all the topsoil and mulch you need because they've got tons of it. 631-756-1125. Nowhere can you find better prices. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Oh, good. He told you. And also Tempest by
I've been listening. Yes. Oh dear.
And Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system from our affiliate here and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. They have all sorts of other weather gadgets and gizmos, and of course the latest in stylish weather fashion. And if you use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, what do you get?
You get a full 10% off.
All right. Good. At least somebody's paying attention.
Always, always.
Well, for those of you who are not familiar with Mrs. Rayo, this is Mrs. Rayo, and she is standing in or sitting in for Joe Rayo, who's off at the Met game playing with his bobblehead doll.
And they got them too.
Oh, they did? Okay, good.
Yes.
He was really adamant that he was supposed to get this bobblehead.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It's nice to see you. Did you get Wordle today?
Yes, I did. Today was an unusual day. My daughter normally starts off with that word. I don't want to spoil it, or can we spoil it?
No, don't spoil it in case somebody hasn't done it
yet. Okay, she normally starts off, believe it or not, with that word. So the first thing this morning, she says, I got Wordle in 1. That's a big hint. So immediately I put in her word, and I got it in 1.
Well, I got it in 3. I got it in 3 today. I've actually got it in 1 twice. In 3 days apart, back months ago. I mean, I've never, I've gotten a number of times where I've gotten it in 2, but in 1 was that was just sheer luck both times because I use whatever 5-letter word pops into my head. I don't it honestly it really doesn't matter. I've done it where you've got your set words, and then I changed it around where I would use the word from the day before as the starter word, and it didn't really change. It really didn't change very much in terms of whether you get it or not. You just have to be lucky enough to pull the right letters in the right spots, or even in the wrong spots, because then you could at least eliminate stuff. So anyhow.
Yeah.
Yes, so good evening, everybody on the chat board. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show with Renata Rayo sitting in for Mr. Rayo, who is at the Met game tonight. Those of you who are lurking in the background, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can watch the Joe and Joe Weather Show every night. Well, almost every night. We're on Monday through Thursdays at 7:35, Sundays at 11 a.m., and we're off on Fridays and Saturdays because we need 2 days to recharge. But if there's some serious weather going on, we shuffle the schedule up a bit and we let everybody know. And I just want to say thank you to, I believe it was Birder Lady. Yes, Birder Lady hitting the Super Chat tip jar as the first day of hurricane season is tomorrow.
Right.
Yes. Right. So did you have any smoke today?
It is a tiny bit hazy, but nothing substantial. I heard that it was worse yesterday, but even yesterday I didn't notice too much of any smoke or haze. It's a slightly milky white sky.
Okay. It was worse in some places versus others. That's
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I know in parts of New Jersey it was pretty thick. yesterday. Parts of Long Island were pretty
Right.
thick, and
And
al-
coastal Connecticut,
yeah,
southern
and
Connecticut.
also up in north central New York. Apparently, there's been a concentration of it that's been just sort of sitting
Right.
there. It was sort
Right.
of weird because it was coming in from off the ocean. We've been watching it over
Hmm.
the last couple of weeks, just sort of coming in on the northwest flow, but this time around it came in on the easterly flow, went down to Nova Scotia first, and
Right.
then just curled down and around.
14 wildfires in Nova Scotia.
Ish.
That'll do it. And I had heard the other day that also were some wildfires along coastal Maine, but they're emphasizing the wildfires in Nova Scotia. So that brings it down from the northeast with that northeastern flow.
So, you being a gardener, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you'll pay attention to these things. Is it getting exceptionally dry? Are you having to supply more than your usual amount of water?
I haven't planted much yet, to be honest with you. It's been cold. It really has been cold. 40, I think it was 43 this morning.
Hmm.
So, and I haven't even purchased all that many plants, but I intend to do so.
They're
I'll be
not
home
ch- they're not
this
cheap.
weekend, and no, I know, but and I'll plant some seeds too. But and believe it or not, in my big gigantic tomato pots, some tomatoes from last year's fruits
Oh, came
have
back? I've had
do
that
pop
happen.
up too.
I've had that happen. I've had it when I've put out pumpkin, and the squirrels get in and they eat the seed, and I guess maybe they crap them out or whatever they do, and the next year the plants seem to pop up at random. There was no rhyme or reason, but I've had that happen,
Yeah,
where the
exactly.
pumpkin has come up. So, weather looks pretty tame. I don't see any big deals going on. We do have some temperature changes coming. Looks like we'll
Yeah.
probably see a lot of spots get up around 90 on Friday because the onshore flow is going to disappear, and for the
Yeah,
most part.
it's gonna be hot. Today it was 80, no, in the 70s,
Yeah.
primarily in the 70s.
So
Yes.
tomorrow you will you'll certainly get into the 80s, I think. So
Yes.
probably will
And
be a sea breeze along the shore.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's gonna be hot and summery, short weather for the next couple of days up here.
All right, and down here in beautiful northeast Georgia, I had a mostly sunny day, but about 20 miles north of me, near the North Carolina state line, some thunderstorms developed there, but I never saw them. And we were mostly in the middle to upper 70s today. Still have pretty reasonable dew points down in the upper 50s and low 60s, so it's pretty comfortable up here in the mountains. It's a little warmer and more humid as you go south of Atlanta
Hmm.
in the southern half of the state. But
Right.
all in all, I mean, this has really been I kind of think measured, based on how springs can be. I think the spring, this spring has been pretty good for much of the time. Certainly for here, and I also think just judging from the weather every night,
Yes.
watching it every day,
Even
uh,
here.
yeah, I think the
Yeah.
spring's been pretty good.
Yeah. Outside of those like two really hot days we had in the midst of April,
Right.
the weather has been pretty darn good. I think a little dry, but typically you have a lot of days in a row during the month of May where you don't get that much precipitation.
Yeah, and this has been a overall a dry month. It's been very dry in
Hmm.
across Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, a lot of spots barely getting. Philadelphia's going to have this is their driest May on record. They only had a quarter of an inch for the whole month, but New York City I had about two. So there are differences here, but
It
most areas were
varies.
subnormal.
Exactly, exactly. It does vary from one spot to another, and that's been pointed out too on the local news. So we'll see how the rest of the spring, if you want to call it that, or month of June works out. We're at the end of May. May's over,
I
huh?
know. Isn't that something?
By
The
fast.
time goes by quickly. All right, tonight we've got some of the watches and warnings that are up in the gray over New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania, southern Connecticut, all reflecting air quality issues. Same for southern Michigan, southern Wisconsin, northeast Ohio, a few counties around St. Louis, even a
Mhm.
few counties down in Texas and Louisiana for one reason or another. We've got severe thunderstorm watches up in West Texas and in eastern New Mexico. A number of flash flood flash flood warnings have gone up in a few counties in New Mexico. Also have flash flood watches up in northwest Texas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, northeastern New Mexico. Also in eastern Montana, parts of central Montana too, under some flash flood watches there. And we've got some flash flood watches up in northwest Mississippi as well as in southeastern Florida, where we've got a little bit of a low in the Gulf. And I got the surface map up. That high to the north is really, it's sitting now over southeastern Massachusetts. It's really the onshore flow now has weakened considerably from what it was yesterday.
Right, right. And hence the warmer temperatures for tomorrow.
Oh, no, yeah, no question. And the boundary zone is way to the south. The old backdoor cold front that came through on Monday has dissipated, and there's a little low that's sitting east of the North Carolina coast. So that's kept parts of southernmost Virginia and northernmost North Carolina in a remaining area of, let's call it, gloom and doom. It wasn't terrible.
Right.
And in the Gulf of Mexico, you've got this broad low that is sitting in the eastern Gulf, right about in the, well off the Florida coast, but it's very, very broad. And I mean, I'm just looking at the wind barbs here. There is a broad circulation, but when you look at the satellite loop, and I'll just go to the full U.S. loop here as it loads.
You do see some circulation, but it doesn't look promising for it to go any further.
No, there's a hook. There's a hook on the satellite, but there's not much in the way of convection really near the center. There's actually very little. There's a little thunderstorm just pops up on the last frame near where the center is, but most of the activity is actually to the east and northeast, and it's kind of slowly moving in that direction. The Hurricane Center during the day on the tropical weather outlook, we should have the new one, so I'll give that a quick check. And they said they had 20% and 20%, and at 8 o'clock they said that 20% and 20%. Still say marginally favorable for some slow development over the next day or two before conditions become unfavorable. Yeah, this doesn't really look like much to me. The more annoying part for me has been the fact that I keep seeing these news stories that pop up. 4 tropical waves are being monitored by the Hurricane Center. No, they're not. I mean, there's always tropical waves out there, but no, now everything is everything is worded so that it's the upcoming apocalypse, and it's just so ridiculous.
Clickbait.
Yeah, it's just all clickbait. Yeah. It's all BS. Meanwhile, we've got, as we said, the severe weather in eastern New Mexico and West Texas, so we could take a look at that on the radar tonight and see what's happening. We'll give it a quick refresh. Obviously, there's nothing going on from Maine down to Georgia until you get to southwest Georgia, and then you've got rain in central and south Florida with a few heavier thunderstorms, and there's no flash flood warnings that are up there, but there are some heavy downpours going on in places, and also into southeastern Alabama, southwestern Georgia, a few showers and thunderstorms. Here's the severe weather complex. So it looks like we got about 4 severe thunderstorm warnings that are up at the moment. One little tornado warning.
Okay. That wasn't there a short while ago.
Right, and one little tornado warning that came and went in a matter of minutes. And a rather geographically large area for flash flood warnings in a few counties in east central New Mexico. So that's where the Western Plains has been where we've seen a lot of action thunderstorm wise this week, and that's going to continue for another couple of days because of the way the whole upper pattern is. Uh, that's they're getting the heavier thunderstorms and the potential for severe weather, but not so much anywhere else.
Yeah, there's not much to really say. This the scattering of minor low pressure systems out over the western third of the country just brings that hit and miss scattered shower activity throughout the Rockies, out all the way out over to Nevada and up through Idaho. All the activity is it's all west and in the deep southeast.
Yep, Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk tonight in that area where we have the working severe thunderstorm watch. And folks, if you're watching, don't forget we're live at 7:53 p.m. Eastern time right now. So if you're watching this on a replay, obviously a lot of this is going to be dated, so you want to make sure you have the latest weather information. So at least when it comes to the severe weather, make sure you go to weather.gov to get the most current weather information in your particular area. Marginal risk shoots all the way up into western Nebraska and into parts of South Dakota. Also a small area of marginal risk in Minnesota. May normally is a busy severe weather month, but the last week or two, it hasn't really been all that busy. And when you have a cooler than normal pattern coming to the east like that, it's no big surprise. I mean, virtually all the areas that you would normally expect to see severe weather, the Mississippi Valley, the Tennessee Valleys, the South, the upper air pattern is just not favorable for severe weather, thankfully, in those areas.
Yeah, we might see some hit and miss thunderstorms here in our area, in the tri-state area, come like Friday night into Saturday. I noticed looking at the numerical guidance that the lifted indices drop off on Saturday to like -3 to -4.5. So we'll have to see. That instability is indicative of some thunderstorm activity here and there for that.
Yeah, agreed. I just, I wonder, I guess maybe in terms of the timing, if it's more in the morning into the early afternoon, it might preclude them from being severe as opposed to, say, if the front came later in the day.
Right.
Tomorrow, severe weather risk is a small area in West Texas and eastern New Mexico and western Oklahoma, much like today, just a smaller geographic area being indicated, and it's in almost the same place for Friday into Saturday. And on Friday, SPC has a risk of general thunderstorms for eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, northeastward through New England. I kind of thought that there might be some thunderstorms that form up in New England on Friday, but as they move southward, once they get into southern, I just was sort of looking around and seeing, how unstable the atmosphere is. The atmosphere is not that unstable, if at all, when you get down closer to the coast. So I think any storms that form Friday in New England that are going to start moving southward with the cold front may wind up falling apart before they reach the lower Hudson Valley, southern Connecticut, Long Island, New Jersey, and eastern Pennsylvania for Friday night. And then on Saturday, when the front comes closer, then you probably will wind up getting some showers and storms.
So I think it'll be interesting for a late Friday into Friday night, especially with the temperatures warming up across the Northeast for Friday.
Oh yeah, I mean there's going to be a lot. In fact, why don't I bring up the high temperature map? Because Friday's going to be that one isolated day where much of the area is going to go to 90. So let me see what they're doing here. So let's put up. It's also been one of these upside down patterns where it's very warm. Like for example, today it was middle.
At Caribou, Maine.
Yeah, I mean it was well into the 80s to some spots even close to 90 up in Maine and northern Vermont and northern New Hampshire today. When we look at tomorrow. I mean, there's low 90s tomorrow in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. I mean, it gets up to 90 Yeah, Caribou's got a forecast high for the digital forecast there of 93,
Yeah,
whereas it's only, it's only,
hot for
but I mean,
them.
it's in the 80s, lower Hudson Valley, southern Connecticut. You get down near the shore, near the immediate coast, it's in the 70s, Long Island, coastal Connecticut, and coastal New Jersey. So inland areas tomorrow are going to try to warm up, and then Friday's going to be the hot day for most places, where we're talking low 90s in a lot of inland spots.
Hmm.
A lot of inland spots. 92 for Trenton, Philadelphia 93, New York City 89. So let's call it 90.
All the
90.
way back to Ohio into Michigan.
Yeah, look at that. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
look, just loaded with 90s just about everywhere. And meanwhile, for me, 81 for a high on Friday.
Hmm.
81 for me. 86 for Atlanta. I'm usually about 5 to 7 degrees cooler than Atlanta most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely see a sea of red there. Rainfall wise, from our friends at WPC, see, and I have this. I've always had this sort of, let's call it a mental hard set rule when looking at dry weather patterns in the Northeast, particularly in the eastern PA to southern New England area, that when the models don't show rain for 16 days, that almost never happens. I can't remember the last time we didn't have rain for 16 days. So the fact that
Yeah, there's always something. There's always a little monkey wrench that gets thrown in there.
right
Some
and
instability somewhere.
yeah, and in this case, this is not quite a backdoor cold front, but usually these kind of fronts don't produce very much. But this one has a decent shortwave trough in the upper atmosphere that is moving southeastward, and it's going to have a trigger. That's going to be the trigger mechanism. So WPC's they got half to 3/4 of an inch, and being that Saturday's probably going to be Friday night, Saturday, there might even be some lingering showers on Sunday, but now they got from much of New England 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half in some places, half to 3/4 in the Hudson Valley, quarter to a half goes all the way down through New Jersey into Maryland and northeastern Virginia. I mean, look, we're not talking about any big deal here in terms of rainfall, but this was a change from just a few days ago when they had no rain in the forecast anywhere for 7 days. So that obviously had to be changed.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, well, what else can we say and what else can we talk about?
Well, we could talk about the big rains that are going to be occurring in central and north Texas and all up through the central and northern Rockies. I mean, these are areas that have been abnormally dry.
Why?
So
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is very true. That is very true. They do need the rainfall there for sure.
and there's a 3-inch plus area bullseye for the next week in northwest Texas and western Oklahoma, and also scattered up the Rockies, some 2 and 3-inch liquid amounts. Central and South Florida, 1.5 inches to some places in South Florida, 3 to 4 inches with that Gulf flow and the tropical moisture that's involved there. Not much, though, in Ohio, western PA. Pennsylvania's been very dry. I've got friends near the Susquehanna River who say that the river's as low as they've seen it in many, many years. So bone dry once you move away, you get far enough inland.
Right,
And
right.
some heavier rains also in the Sierra Nevadas. Mike, I wonder if they melted all the snow away. They sure had enough snow, a lot of snow to melt.
Yeah, they did. High enough elevations, I'm sure there's still quite a bit left over, and they're dealing with flooding down below.
Yep. All right, here's the Gulf low. I saved this loop. I couldn't find it before. It was what I just did. And here's a close-up view. We can get nice and close here. There you go. Come on. There you
Very,
go.
very pretty
Yeah.
picture. Huh?
Yeah, you can see there's a little low-level circulation, but there's not much in the way of thunderstorms around the center. There's some convection, off the Florida west coast, sweeping northeastward. But yeah, I just, maybe if this were a month down the road, and the upper air is not exactly screaming favorable for development here, so I don't think we have too much concern of this suddenly blowing up into a tropical storm. So let's just take a look at what the GFS has to say with this front. Now, again, for some reason, this model, I looked at the soundings here and near the coast, and were not that unstable. There's a couple of we know tomorrow is going to be nice. And we're going to see temperatures, in the 80s. You got the high centered in eastern Pennsylvania. Actually, much of the eastern part of the United States is not going to see much in the way of any rain. It's very quiet. Stuff in the ocean is way out. The Gulf, even the low what's in the Gulf doesn't seem to be producing very much. Then as we move into Friday afternoon, a couple of pop-ups show up. And then by Friday evening, there are more than just a couple of pop-ups. They're all inland. Hudson Valley, Northwest Connecticut, up into southern Vermont, New Hampshire. And this is at 8 o'clock Friday evening, but they completely disappear in the next 6 hours. I just don't think that they'll survive when they get into that. There's going to be a little bit of a marine layer near the coast, so I don't think they're going to survive when they get into that cooler air. And then, of course, the whole front comes down for Saturday morning, and you see showers and storms. And this is where I think we'll probably wind up putting the bulk. Again, the timing at midday probably precludes these from getting severe in eastern PA to southern New England. On the other hand, in Virginia and over Chesapeake Bay and the Delmarva Peninsula, they might see stronger thunderstorms late Saturday into Saturday night, because that's going to time better with the daytime heating.
Better, right? They'll daytime heating, diurnal heating, and so forth. Right. So now it looks like, for the most part, a 50-50 weekend. I know you questions what's going to happen on Sunday. We might have some residual showers, but certainly I'll say Sunday is going to be the better half.
Well, yeah, I would agree. I think Sunday should be a bit better than Saturday, but I think there's probably going to still be some. There's you might luck out where there's showers to the east and showers to the west, and there's sort of a hole in the middle. The way it's being framed here. There's some kind of the old front stalls, and there's like a little low that develops on it and starts to rotate around a bit. So it might make for questionable conditions for Sunday and Monday. It's not going to be picture perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's nothing major. And then it looks like it's going to get cool for next week, with a low churning up in southeastern Canada and northern New England, spinning around pretty much all week long. That drives down the
cooler air again into the northeast. Exactly. But I don't mind. I love it.
Oh no! So actually, this front eventually finds its way all the way down to the Gulf Coast late next week. So even I get to taste some of that. The longer I can put off the heat and humidity down here, the better I am too.
I hear you.
I've become less tolerant of summer weather as I've gotten older.
Yeah, exactly. Some people are exactly the opposite, though. They slow down to the point where, they're I guess they need the heat to stay warm. That's why they travel down to Florida for their retirement.
Leon Probitsky just hit super chat. Thank you, Leon, for doing that. So we're back full screen. I don't have a Briller. Do I have it? Let me see. Did Scott send me something?
Oh, dear. Okay.
I think he did.
I never do very well.
Well, I do well. I do well when I have the answers. Oh, okay. Well, this is one that Joe would have enjoyed, but we'll give this a try. So tonight on Briller Jeopardy, folks, it's the 5 highest rated television series finales of all time.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So think back.
Yes. Well, that would have to be number 1 on the list. Has to be MASH.
The number 1 on the list is MASH. Yes, in 1983. So that is number 1.
Well, What's
Dallas is not on, or Dynasty not on the list, nor is the Honeymooners, is the
Dallas
chat
is not
board.
on the list?
No, Dallas is
Hmm.
not on the list.
Huh.
Uh, well, you've got MASH. I will just tell you, three of the remaining four are comedies. Okay, and John Melander gets it with Friends, and
All
so
right.
does
Yes.
Patrick
Yes.
Darcy. And Trish
Mhm.
Sparacchio gets Cheers, which is number
Yes.
2. Friends was number 5. So we're left with 3 and 4.
Three
3
and
and
four.
4 are left.
Okay. Everybody Loves Raymond. That's
No,
Frank
not
Darro's.
in the top 5. Golden Girls not in the top 5.
Chicago.
All in the
All in the
Family not
Family?
in the top 5. No. The original Hawaii Five-O, no.
No, he's saying it's a comedy, folks. It's a comedy.
One is what's left is one is a comedy and one is not. Not the
Oh, only
not The
one.
Office, not Frasier, not Happy Days. Trying to see if anybody's mentioned it. I'm surprised no one's mentioned this. Not I Love Lucy. Latex Dreams has now hit it. Seinfeld. Seinfeld.
Yes. Of course. Okay. Okay.
Which
Yeah.
leaves us with one. It's not a comedy. It's one where I think let me put it this way. I knew when I saw this, I thought, oh, I knew that, but I never would have thought I would never have guessed it. Okay.
All right. So, how old is this show?
Okay. So this show I will say that this show was in the 1960s.
Oh,
Not a comedy.
not a
Oh,
comedy.
Patrick Darcy got it. Patrick Darcy got it.
Fugitive?
The Fugitive. Yes.
I don't even remember that show.
Yes, The Fugitive with David Jansen. The finale was, there was a big that show had a big following.
I don't know. Who makes up these lists? Really?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't really agree with this list. A
So,
lot of these,
do you have a special place for this bobblehead when he brings it home?
Oh, he'll probably just stick it on the top of his desk somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, on a shelf or
And
something.
how's the dog?
He's fine. Occasionally, I've been looking down, and I don't know. He was at my feet, so he did move away. He's got to be somewhere. He's good. He's always underfoot. It seems. We can't. Sometimes I wind up kicking him, or and not on purpose. I mean, but because I'm walking around, or I shift my feet, or I step on his tail. He's got this big, long, fluffy tail that's just wagging around constantly. Looks so cute. And he doesn't say boo if I happen to bump into him or step on his tail. He just looks at me like, what, But our biggest problem is when somebody new comes through the door.
Oh,
Joe's sister came in late yesterday, and he was biting at her feet.
Oh, okay.
He wanted all that attention, and I guess it's just attention he wants. We can't, it's hard for us to figure out. But we've only had him now 2.5 months, and he was sick.
It does take time.
Yeah.
I mean, it does take time, especially if the dog had a stressful early life and he had the medical issues that he had. So,
yeah.
But and he's getting used to both of you. He's got his new home, so he's
exactly.
It'll probably take a good year to work it out. Yeah.
Tell that to Joe. His patience is running thin, and sometimes mine does too.
Mine usually when we're doing the show is he comes in with me in my office / bedroom, and he will either lay down on the bed or lay down on the side of the bed and just sleep through the whole show. And it's very funny because he knows that I'm doing the show, so he's very quiet. He doesn't
Right.
doesn't go crazy. Tonight he didn't come into the room. I'm not sure why. He's asleep in the family room on the by the side of the couch.
Hmm.
So their dogs are, they've got their world, and they sort of expect
He's
us
not,
to, and we have to
if he's
adapt
not
to it.
barking, it's okay.
Mhm. Well, I think we could just wrap it up for tonight. And
Oh,
thanks for filling in for Mr. Rayo, who will be back tomorrow night
correct.
at
Thank you.
7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks everybody for uh, being here tonight and participating on the chat board. We always like it when people participate in on the Briller Jeopardy and everything else. So we'll see you all tomorrow night at 7:35. Thanks again to Leon Probitsky and Birder Lady for hitting the tip jar tonight. Say good night, Mrs. Rayo.
Good night, Mrs. Rayo.
Good night. Night,
Good
everybody.
night.